is congruent to angle 3. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to mark the diagram. And what's the last? What's going on? Okay. So now I wrote out my given, I marked my diagram. What's the last statement we always write? Leilani? Yeah, so our first statement is always what's given to us. Our last statement is what we want to prove. So no matter what, you should always get points for your first and last statement. There should be nobody here that's losing all points because your first statement's always your given. Your last statement's always what you want to prove. Always the same. So now let's look at what we want to prove. We want to prove that angle 1's congruent to angle 2. There's absolutely no reason right now that we can say angle 1's congruent to angle 2. But looking at the diagram, which angle is congruent to angle 2? Jack? Yeah, so that's what I'm going to say in the second statement. I'm going to say angle 2 is congruent to angle 3. And who remembers the reason for this? Why are the kissing angles congruent? Sebastian? So, but we need a whole statement. Vertical angles. You got it. Vertical angles are congruent. Okay, so now this was the new thing that we learned last class. Since 1's congruent to 3 from the given and 2's congruent to 3 from vertical angles are congruent. So 1's congruent to 3 and 2's congruent to 3. So since 1 and 2 are both congruent to 3, do they have to be congruent to each other? Yeah, what is that? It's one word when it has a whole chain of congruency. Caitlin? It is transitive. How many people got that right? Amazing. All right. So first statement is always our given. So I'm going to say angle A is a supplement to angle D, and angle A is congruent to angle C. Given. And so now the last statement is always what we want to prove. We want to prove that C is a supplement to D. Well, let's go back. So A and D add up to 180. That's what it means to be supplements. But then it's saying A and C are congruent. So this makes sense, right? If it's given to us that A is a supplement to D, that means angle A plus angle D equals 180. Since A and D are the same, shouldn't C plus D also equal 180? What is that? Because they're equal, I'm substituting something into an equation. What is that? Substitution. All right. So today we're not really learning any new things. We're just sort of pushing everything together. Like all the different things we learned, we're putting it all together to make sure we remember everything. So here, what we're going to do is the first one, I'm giving you a given information, and I want us to figure out what the best conclusion would be and then prove it. So if ray PS bisects angle RPO, if you're going to bisect an angle, what would be the thing you should conclude? If you're going to bisect an angle, you should conclude that you get what? Two what? That are what? So they are congruent. So two things that are congruent, what are they? Are they lines? Are they segments? Are they angles? Are they rays? What do they have to be? So it's not always the same. It all depends on what you're bisecting. So in this scenario, Sebastian, what are we bisecting? No, what is that symbol right here? What are we bisecting? An angle. So if you bisect an angle, you should get angles. If you bisect a segment, what should you get? segment. So whatever you're bisecting, you should get the same of that. So since we're bisecting an angle, we should get angles. Let's see which angles. So which angle are we bisecting? We are bisecting angle RPO. So you go to the middle letter. What's the middle letter? P. Go look inside. Are there two angles by P? Those are the two angles you want to get. Can somebody name those two angles for me using 3 letters? So I'm going to say I want to get angle, the two angles by P. Jack? You got it. RPS congruent to angle SPO. So now if we're going to prove this first step is our given. And then we can write what we want to prove. Angle RPS is congruent to angle SPO. Who thinks they know the reason? What's the reason why these two angles are congruent? What would we write? Not transitive, because transitive you would need more congruent things. So what told us that these angles were congruent? What led us to believe that? Wasn't it the word bisect? So when we saw the word bisect, we bisected the angle. So this is going to be def of bisect, def of bisect. So we wrote that. We made the conclusion. So I was asking you, given this given information, what's the best conclusion we can make? So if PS bisects angle RPO, if you remember, a bisector splits it into 2, right? So then our conclusion would be that this is what happens.
Wait, was there we gonna have to like make them up like that?
Yeah, you might have to write your best conclusion.
Okay. Like that, and you can get up to both of them.
I guess it's possible. I don't know. I'd have to like try to follow your train of thought to see if I could give any points anywhere. Because you would get some points, because if you wrote whatever you wrote here, you're getting that point, right? So you're going to still get partial credit. Okay, if H is the midpoint of DF, what's the best conclusion we can make if H is the midpoint of DF? Caitlin? Good. What's going to be congruent? Yep. So our best conclusion is that DH will be congruent to HF. So now what we want to do is prove DH is congruent to HF. And what made us come to that conclusion? What was the word that made us come to that conclusion? Stella? Midpoint. So guess what I'm going to write here? Def of midpoint. All right, number 3. Now it's saying B and C trisect segment AD. When you trisect a segment, what are you going to get? Leilani? Excellent. 3 congruent segments. Sebastian, how did Leilani know that we were going to get 3 segments and not 3 angles? Good, because it's trisected a segment right here. It said segment. If I said you were going to trisect an angle, we wouldn't get 3 segments. We would then get 3 angles. Does that make sense? Okay, so now let's look. If we're going to trisect this full segment AD, do you see 3 parts that it splits into? I do. I see AB, I see BC, and I see CD. So that's what we want to prove. AB congruent to BC congruent to CD. So statement 1 is our given. And statement 2 is what we want to prove. All right, and what was the word that told us that these three parts were going to be congruent? Trisect. So we're going to say def of trisect. Can I finish? Can I finish? Can I move on to the next one? All right, mixed practice. All right, so now it's going to get a little bit more difficult. So it says angle BAD, so I have to mark it, is congruent to angle FAD. So BAD, that's, why is it not writing? This angle right here, BAD, is congruent to angle FAD, which I'll put right here. Everybody okay with that first marking that I made? Okay, now it says that AD bisects angle CAE. Jay, if I'm going to bisect an angle, what should I get? Well, the prefix bi means what? Like a bicycle has how many wheels? Two. So the prefix bi means two. So if you're going to bisect an angle, you're not going to get four angles, you're going to get two angles. Now we have to decide where are those angles going to be. So what you want to do is you want to look at the angle, you want to look at the middle letter. What's the middle letter? A. So now what's doing the bisecting? AD. So you're going to look at AD and you're going to look at A. I'll highlight it right here. Here's AD. So from AD up by A, do you see two angles, one on either side of D? Do you guys see that? We have this angle right here and you have this angle right here by D through AD. So those are going to be the two angles that we're going to say are congruent. Can I name them 1 and 2? Yeah, I can name this one 1. And this one 2. So step number 2, I'm going to say angle 1 is congruent to angle 2. And what was the word that told us that those two were going to be congruent? Bisect. So what do you think I'm going to write here? You got it. Def of bisect. Now, the last thing we want to do is always write down, the last statement is always what we want to prove. So I want to prove angle BAC is congruent to angle FAE. This one's a hard one to see. Do we see how this whole angle is congruent to this whole angle? And then we were able to get 1 and 2 congruent. So since the big angles are congruent, and 1 or 2 incongruent, if I take away 1 and 2, can I get angle BAC and angle FAE congruent? Because I'm taking away angles 1 and 2. What word goes with that, taking away? Stella? So this is going to be subtraction. This one was a hard one. I would give you, it could be, but I would give you some I would give you like something here and like something here or something. I would give you something to work off of. I wouldn't leave it completely blank. Okay, so the first piece of given information is saying G is the midpoint of FH. What can we conclude if G is the midpoint of FH? Noah? You got it. So statement 2, since that hasn't been written down, I'm going to write that down. FG is congruent to GH. And what would be the reason? Kaylin? Perfect. Def of midpoint. Okay, then we have that FG, right here, FG, oops, is congruent to KJ. So I'm going to put the same marking on KJ that's on FG. So I just marked this, FG congruent to KJ. Now the last thing we write is what we want to prove. So GH is congruent to KJ. Well, let's look at what we have. From the information, FG is congruent to KJ, and we concluded that FG is congruent to GH. Well, if GH is congruent to FG and KJ is congruent to FG, don't they have to be congruent to each other? What is that? One word. Caitlin told me last time. Somebody else. What's that? Anybody else? Okay, Leilani. It is transitive. Okay, 2 more together. Oops. Oh, Stella. Okay, so not the easiest, but we got this. I want everyone right now on your computers to show me if BD bisects angle CBE, what can you mark? If BD bisects angle CBE, I want you to mark it and then turn over your computers to show me. If BD bisects CBE. Perfect. 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 And then I want you to write that as your second statement. Perfect. 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 Okay, so now if BD bisects CBE, I saw enough that everyone I saw marked these 2 angles congruent. So that's going to be my second statement. Angle 3 is congruent to angle 2. And wasn't it the word bisector that led us to believe that? That's why the reason that's written out for you is def of bisect. Does that make sense? Okay, great. So now let's see what else we have. We want to prove that angle 1 is congruent to angle 3. This is not, 1 and 3 are not vertical angles. That's very awkward angle, right? The vertical angles is like the perfect bird beaks coming together. 1 and 3 is a little like awkward, right? One's going for the cheek, one's going for the lips. It's very awkward. They're like side by side. They don't like that. All right. So 1 and 3 right now are not congruent. Who is angle 1 congruent to? 1 congruent to. Okay. Excellent. Angle 1's congruent to angle 2. So that's going to be my next statement. Angle 1's congruent to angle 2. And who's going to tell me the reason for that? Noah? You got it. Vertical angles are congruent. So now look at what we have here. We made this happen. We got 3 is congruent to 2 and 1 is congruent to 2. Well, if 1's congruent to 2 and 3 is congruent to 2, don't 1 and 3 have to be congruent to each other since they're both congruent to 2? Bella, what is that? One word. So they're both congruent to the same thing, so they have to be congruent to each other. Yeah. Jay? Transitive. So remember, it's a whole chain of congruency. You knew it. You just didn't want to say it. So this is going to be transitive. Okay, so in the first piece of given information, it says J and K are trisection points of HM. I want everybody to mark what that means, what you can make from that, and then turn it over and show me. That's black. So you're going to mark what that first piece of given means. Perfect. 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 Remember, the prefix tri means what? 3. Perfect. Prefix tri means 3. And what are we trying? We're trisecting the segment. So we should get 3 segments. If you trisect an angle, you have to get 3 angles. Nope. So what's being trisected from H to M? So you want to go from H to M and look for 3 sections within H to M. Does that make sense? Perfect. Perfect, Jen. Okay, so we said we're trisecting H to M. So that means from H to M, I need 3 segments. 1, 2, 3. Has it been written down that those 3 parts are equal? No, so we have to now write that down in statement 2. We're going to say that HJ is congruent to JK, which is congruent to KM. Any guesses on the reason here? Any guesses, Caitlin? Yep, def of trisect. Okay, but there's more given. Now they're telling us that GH is congruent to MO. So I mark that. And now our last statement is always what we want to prove. So I'm going to write down GJ congruent to KO. And now let's look from, we want to prove from that G to J is congruent to K to O. They absolutely are congruent. Does anybody think they know the reason why they're congruent? Jack?
Addition.
It is absolutely addition, right? 2 tick marks plus 1 from G to J, and then from O to K is also 2 tick marks plus 1. So that's addition. Okay, I want you to work on the next 3 problems on your own, and I'm going to be coming around to help you. And I guess I'll stop recording here.